Who milks the bees to extract the honey?
So no one milks the bees to extract the honey.
Oh.
Thankfully, we don't have to do that. Honey isn't milk.
Who honeys the bees?
So the bees don't get milked or honeyed.
Welcome to the Undergrowth. This is where we speak to celebrated scientists and eminent educators about plants and pests. Let us embrace knowledge together on this expedition into mysterious realms. I'm Sebastian Eugene Bartholomew, and this is the Undergrowth. Today on the program I have the distinct pleasure to welcome Mr. Randall Cass, an extension bee specialist working at the Royal Academy of Iowa State University. We will be taking a dive into the lives of the sweet and waxy world of honeybees. Mr. Cass belongs to the PPEM department on campus, which, as we all know, stands for the Pollination and Paranormal Economics and Miscellaneous Department. Is that correct?
No, it actually stands for plant pathology, entomology, and microbiology.
Those acronyms can be so cranky sometimes, can't they?
I wish it was the pollinator economic, whatever you said. Yeah, paranormal pollinators.
Pollination, paranormal, economics, and miscellaneous. Throw in there whatever you want.
Yeah, unfortunately, just plant path, entomology, and microbiology.
Important topics, I presume.
Some would think so.
Indeed. Mr. Cass, can you tell us the story that has led you to be an extension bee specialist for Iowa State University, and also what exactly does an extension bee specialist do?
Sure. So as a bee extension specialist at Iowa State, I go out and talk to beekeepers about bees and best management practices for keeping their hives healthy. I also go out and talk to farmers and landowners about best practices for conserving pollinator populations and pollinator habitat. I came to this position 6 years ago because I'm really passionate about bees and talking to people about bees, so it seemed like a perfect fit.
We like to start these out with a little bit of a quiz.
Okay.
Now, I will ask you 4 questions, and you have to get 100% right to win the special grand prize. Do you think you can do it?
Let's go for it.
4 for 4. All right, the first one is, how many wings do bees have?
4.
Oh, that is correct. 1 for 1 so far. How many times can a single bee sting?
They can only sting you once. The female workers can only sting you once.
Oh, the males can't sting?
No, a stinger is actually a modified ovipositor, which is an egg-laying apparatus, and so the males don't have them because no males lay eggs.
So the males in the colony just kind of hang about, drink some honey, and they can't even defend the females?
Yeah, more or less. The males in the colony mostly just hang around. They wait for a maiden queen on her maiden flight to smell her pheromones, and other than that, they pretty much just beg for food from their sisters.
What a bunch of dead bees.
What a bunch of dead beats.
Indeed. All right, well, third question. Name 2 other products that come from bees besides honey.
Wax, of course, comes from bees. They produce wax for their comb where they store their honey. And then another product would be propolis. Propolis is a substance that bees produce made mostly from tree resin, and they use it as sort of the concrete to fill in gaps in any of the hive boxes or to hold their hive together. And sometimes people sell propolis to make things like throat sprays because it has natural antimicrobial properties, so you could spray it on a sore throat and hopefully help you feel better.
Oh, have you tried that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, go to the hippie section at your grocery store. It should be easy to find. It works pretty well.
The hippie section is where they have all the tie-dye shirts for sale.
You gotta love that tie-dye.
4th and final question. Yeah. You're doing well so far. If you get this one, you win the grand prize. What are bees made of?
What are bees made of?
What are they made of?
Bee parts?
Bee parts. Well, I'll inquire with the judges.
Spitfire and
Vinegar?
vinegar.
I think you're about correct. Well, we'll let it slide and we'll say you've got all 4 correct, and I'll present you with your prize here. 100% bee venom.
Oh, this is what I've always wanted.
Right, right. What are you going to do with your prize?
Save it for later.
No nefarious evildoer things with it?
Well, actually, bee venom is a product that many places like makeup companies will purchase. They like to infuse bee venom into their products, things like lip plumpers. And so bee venom is something that can also be sold.
Wow.
Yeah,
Extraordinary
this probably
value.
be worth quite a bit. This is pretty great.
Well, good luck importing it. There's probably all sorts of regulations.
Right.
Yeah. Can't move it over state lines and such.
Yeah, there could be. I have never imported bee venom, so I don't know.
Well, first time for everything. Mr. Cass, our focus is honeybees, but please tell us the significance of both honeybees and native bees.
Yeah, absolutely. Honeybees are really widely recognized, and people might have heard the phrase "save the bees" before,
Indeed.
and they might think of honeybees. But the truth is that honeybees, since they're semi-domesticated livestock, we are able to control their populations a little bit. So although beekeepers are losing honeybees at a faster rate than they were 20 years ago, we're able to replace the hives we lose fairly quickly. So we don't actually lose the number of hives we have from year to year. It stays fairly consistent. But we are losing more hives than we used to. And if that's true for honeybees, that's also true for native species of bee. Here in Iowa, we have between 300 and 400 species of native bee here, but they are not semi-domesticated like honeybees. So we can't replace their populations as we lose them. Types of native species of bee would be bumblebees, all the bumblebees you see in your garden, the bright green sweat bees that'll land on you in the summertime and lick your sweat. Those are the bees that we need to be attempting to create more habitat for them to nest in, whether they nest in the ground or sometimes in the stems of old plants. Creating more habitat of blooming plants so that they have pollen and nectar sources to feed on throughout the year. And so I guess those would be some of the main differences between honeybees and native species of bee. Honeybees are semi-domesticated. We brought them over from Europe, and native species of bee are not domesticated, and so we need to keep an eye out for them and conserve more of their habitat.
That is a great answer. You mentioned beekeepers losing hives. Wouldn't they remember where they put them?
Yeah, most beekeepers remember where they left their hives, but the hives end up not surviving for the whole year. So they lose hives that don't survive.
Oh, indeed. That is very interesting.
Yeah, it's a big problem. Lots of things can cause a hive not to survive. There's different pests and parasites that are out there, like the varroa mite. Sometimes our weather can spring back and forth. We'll have a really warm day followed by a very cold day, and that can freeze our bees out. There's different bacterial diseases that can get inside our hives and make life difficult for them. And so those are different things that cause us to lose hives. And this time of year, sometimes neighboring hives will attack smaller, weaker hives to steal all their honey. That's called robbing. And so this time of year, just today, we realized we lost a hive due to robbing this past week.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
You'd think that bee kind would care for other bee kind.
Unfortunately, no. They care for who else is inside their hive, and their hive only.
Right. So instead of cutthroat, you might say they're cut thorax.
I would absolutely say that honeybees are cut thorax.
Mr. Cass, honeybees are considered social insects, am I right?
Yes, honeybees are what we consider social insects, meaning each bee doesn't work independently. They work together as sort of a super organism. They communicate with one another to meet goals. So they're able to communicate utilizing pheromones and even communicate through dance in order to communicate different ideas to one another, whether that's locations of good floral resources, whether that is, oh no, there's someone attacking our colony and we need to defend it. They're able to communicate all those things through pheromones and through dance. Yep, we took the honey off. Maybe they are looking for alternative sources of sweetness.
Mr. Cass, you previously mentioned some issues that could occur with honey bees. Can you tell us more about those things, such as colony collapse disorder or varroa mites or anything of that nature?
Sure. So as I mentioned before, beekeepers are losing their hives at faster rates than they were 20 years ago. And rather than that being for one single reason, we think it's a combination of lots of different stressors for our bees working together synergistically. So those stressors can include things like rapidly changing weather patterns and climate. That can include things like pests and disease, so varroa mites being the most prolific parasite that we have in our hives, something that we as beekeepers have to check and treat for. Otherwise, it can cause the bees to become sick and cause us to lose our hives. If our bees start becoming weak as a result of varroa mite, then other diseases can move in as well. Fungal diseases like chalk brood, bacterial diseases like European foul brood, and so that's an issue. And if our hives are weak as well, different insect pests can move in, things like wax moth or small hive beetle that lay their eggs inside the hives, and then once those larvae hatch, they chew through all of your beekeeping equipment, eating all the wax and all the honey and all the bee larvae. Then you add, we're here in Iowa, which means we're in a highly agricultural environment. So that means, first of all, reduced habitat for our bees.
Oh my.
Because we turn all of our land into farmland for our row crop, which means we don't leave a lot of native flowering plants or even weeds that would provide nectar and pollen for our bees. And because our land is so agricultural, that means they're more likely to encounter insecticides out in the field as well. So all these things kind of work together to make Iowa a really tough place for us to keep our hives healthy and safe.
It's a hard knock life for bees.
It's a hard knock life for bees.
Mr. Cass, what are some of the ways that these issues can be solved?
Well, there's no one clear path ahead for solving all of these issues at once. As I mentioned before, there's several different stressors that work together synergistically to hurt the health of our hives. Some things that we can consider as beekeepers are finding apiary sites with good sources of flowering forage, sites where you see plants flowering in the early spring, throughout the summer, and into the early fall. That way the bees will always have something that they can feed off of. Placing our hives at sites where the bees are less likely to encounter insecticides, for example. So perhaps somewhere isolated, somewhere where there's flowers growing but not a lot of agricultural sites around. What else can we do to help our bees? Inspecting our hives regularly for disease, checking for varroa mites and treating for varroa mites. These are all things that we can do to keep our hives healthy and safe.
Who milks the bees to extract the honey?
So no one milks the bees to extract the honey. Thankfully, we don't have to do that. Bees don't produce honey. Isn't milk.
Who honeys the bees?
So the bees don't get milked or honeyed. The bees actually store their honey. The bees store their honey inside their honeycomb, and we can go and remove those frames of honeycomb with honey in them and extract that back in our extraction facility.
Oh, indeed. Fascinating. You're very good at burning things, Mr. Cass.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Have you ever melted a bit of your beard?
Not once.
Not once. That is skill. Speaking of your magnificent beard, have you ever got a bee stuck in it?
I don't think so. Yeah, 10 years of beekeeping and no bee in the beard? I must be doing something right.
Talent or epic string of luck?
Let's go see these bees.
Indeed. What does the taste of sweat bee honey taste like?
I wish I could tell you, but unfortunately, sweat bees don't produce honey that we can consume.
Oh, that's unfortunate. All right, here we have Mr. Cass opening up a hive and examining the inner workings. What are you working with right now?
I'm using my hive tool to pry some of these frames apart so that I can pull out a frame and show you what's on it.
Now, what makes the queen different from the others?
The queen is any fertilized egg, but instead of feeding it the normal food they feed the pupating larvae, they feed the queen bee larvae royal jelly.
Ew.
And that causes the bee to develop in a way where her ovaries are activated and she's able to mate and lay eggs.
And she controls the rest of the citizens of the hive. Is that true?
I think that thinking of the queen bee as a ruler isn't exactly a great way of thinking about it. She is sort of the heart of the colony in that she produces all the eggs that make up the whole colony population. But that is her only job, is to just constantly lay eggs while the others get to work. So in a lot of ways, she's sort of their egg-laying machine that they have to take care of if they want to keep their populations up.
Is there ever a hive coup, off with the queen's head, viva la revolution and all?
A hive coup, absolutely, that can happen. As queens get older, sometimes they're less productive, sometimes they don't lay as many eggs. So the bees will get rid of her and rear a new queen. Here's a drone.
A drone. Ah, you worthless creature. What have you done to earn your keep? Nothing. Nothing. Begging for honey. Don't think your looks will last forever. You can't get by on just those, can you? You don't even have a stinger. Look, I can poke you all day long and you can do nothing about it. I feel so powerful. Oh, a little bit of bee poopy.
They can't sting, but they can poop on you.
Oh, the humility, humanity, what serendipity. Where do they keep the bee venom? Maybe we could give them a little bit of this so they don't have to work so hard.
Yeah, the bee venom they keep in their abdomens in a venom sac that's attached to their barbed stinger. So when a bee stings you, the barbs stick into your skin to keep that venom sac attached to your skin, and they actually move independently. They will pump the venom into your system, which is why if you get stung, you want to kind of scrape that stinger out as fast as you can so that you don't get more venom in your system than you otherwise would.
Indeed, fascinating. So why can some of the worker bees look a bit different from each other?
Younger bees tend to be hairier. They tend to, with this variety of bee, which is Italian, the younger bees tend to have blonde hairs and be much hairier. As the bees get older and they work more, they start losing their hair. So they might appear a little bit darker and their wings might appear a little bit worn. So that explains the slight difference in coloration across the bees. Younger workers are hairy, older workers are balding and darker looking.
I can relate. I work so hard that my luscious locks have faded and lost some of their lusciousness, but that is okay. Mr. Cass, you have told us such great information today. Where can folks go if they want to learn more about beekeeping, keeping bees safe from pests, if they want to begin beekeeping, or if they're experienced beekeepers? I'm sure there are resources out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I suggest people try to find local beekeeping clubs near to where they live. That's a great way to go and join the beekeeping community, and also gives you an opportunity to chat with experienced beekeepers and maybe find a beekeeping mentor that can guide you through the process. Because if you want to get started beekeeping, there's a steep learning curve there in the first couple of years. So ideally, you'd have someone you'd be able to call and troubleshoot your questions with. Another place that you could look is the ISU Bee Program website.
Oh, extension.
bees.cals.iastate.edu. There's a handful of extension videos on there and some extension resources and handouts as well that people might find interesting.
Why, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a bit swarm outside, isn't it?
Very swarm.
Mr. Cass, this conversation reminds me of those rustic days that I spent as a young bee daddy in the Cascades after university. Long hours spent scraping burr, comb, driving off honey rustlers using only the sharpened hive tool and my wits. Talks deep into the night around the campfire about the merits of the Langstroth hive versus the top bar hive. Who would have thought there was so much in-depth conversation regarding those two hives? squeezing each individual bee to get the golden nectar in the fall. Is that what it feels like to be an extension bee specialist, Mr. Cass?
That's exactly what it feels like.
I knew it would.
Bee daddy to bee daddy, I think you get it.
I emphatically thank you for your emotionally captivating cadence about bees today.
Yeah, thank you for coming out here, and thank you for braving the bees.
I'm Sebastian Eugene Bartholomew, and this is The Undergrowth.
They're getting worse?
We really need to close it up.
So-
They're looking for things to rob.
Okay, so time to...
But that's gonna be really fascinating to watch the bees slowly move in on our conversation. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and close this door up.